Parents sold our house. When I turned 18, leaving me homeless so they could travel. 5 years later, Mom shows up crying because Dad cheated. I laughed in her face and shut the door. All right, let me take you back to the day my life turned upside down. My name's Garry, and up until my 18th birthday, I thought I had a pretty average, if not boring, life. We lived in a modest house in a quiet suburban neighborhood. My parents, Victoria and Jeff, were what you'd call typical suburbanites. They went to work, paid their bills, and complained about the lawn like it was the most important thing in the world. They were always pretty private, never really shared much about their plans or dreams. And I, being an oblivious teenager, never really questioned that. So my 18th birthday rolls around. I was excited because, turning 18 is a big deal. You're legally an adult. I was expecting the usual, maybe a nice dinner, a cake, and some presents. Little did I know I was about to get the biggest shock of my life. The day started pretty normal. My mom made my favorite breakfast, pancakes, with extra syrup. I remember feeling a bit nostalgic, thinking about how this might be one of the last times I'd get to enjoy a carefree morning before diving into adult responsibilities. My dad was unusually quiet, but I didn't think much of it. He was often like that, lost in his own world. In the afternoon, they called me into the living room. They were both sitting on the couch, looking uncharacteristically serious. My mom was clutching a manila envelope. I thought maybe they had some big surprise for me, like a college fund or something. Boy, was I wrong. "Garry, sit down," my dad said, his voice steady but with an edge I'd never heard before. I sat, a knot forming in my stomach. My mom handed me the envelope, her eyes avoiding mine. I opened it and pulled out a stack of papers. The first thing I saw was the word eviction in bold letters. I looked up at them, utterly confused. "What is this?" I asked, my voice trembling. My dad cleared his throat. "Garry, you're 18 now, an adult. Your mom and I have decided it's time for us to live our dream. We've sold the house. You have 2 weeks to move out." I was stunned. It felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. "You sold the house? Where am I supposed to go?" I demanded, my heart racing. "We thought this would be a good opportunity for you to learn to stand on your own 2 feet, my mom said, finally meeting my gaze. There was no warmth in her eyes, just a cold, hard determination. I was speechless. My parents, who had always been my safety net, were kicking me out. And for what? To travel the world? It sounded insane. "You can't be serious," I said, hoping this was some sick joke. "We are serious, Garry," my dad replied, his tone leaving no room for argument. "We've been planning this for a long time. You're an adult now. It's time for you to start your own life." I felt a mix of anger, fear, and betrayal. How could they do this to me? I had no savings, no place to go. The reality of my situation hit me like a freight train. "What am I supposed to do?" I asked, my voice breaking. "You'll figure it out," my mom said, as if it were the simplest thing in the world. "We've done our job raising you. Now it's time for us to live our lives." I stormed out of the house, my mind racing. I couldn't believe it. They were really going through with this. Over the next 2 weeks, I frantically tried to figure out my next move. I called friends, looking for a couch to crash on. I applied for every job I could find, desperate to scrape together enough money to survive. The day they left, they didn't even bother to say goodbye. I watched from the window as they drove away, the car packed with their luggage and excitement. They didn't look back, not once. Standing in the empty house, I felt a wave of despair wash over me. This place, which had been my home for 18 years, was now just an empty shell. I had no idea what the future held, but one thing was clear: I was on my own. That was the moment I realized the people I had trusted the most had betrayed me in the worst possible way. But it was also the moment I decided I wouldn't let their betrayal define me. I was determined to survive, no matter what it took. And so began the toughest chapter of my life, one that would test me in ways I never imagined. After my parents ditched me, life became a shitstorm. With no home and barely any money, I was thrown into the deep end. I crashed at friends' places, sleeping on their couches, floors, whatever they had to offer. It was humiliating. I went from a comfortable suburban life to living like a damn drifter. Every day was a battle. I had to find work fast. I took any shitty job I could get my hands on. First, it was flipping burgers at a greasy fast food joint. The pay was crap, the hours sucked, and the customers were the worst. I remember one night some asshole threw his burger at me because there were pickles on it. I wanted to punch him, but I needed the job too much to risk it. After the burger joint, I got a job cleaning toilets at a local gym. That was rock bottom. The smell alone was enough to make me gag, but I couldn't afford to be picky. I scrubbed those damn toilets until my hands were raw. I hated every second of it, but it paid just enough to keep me afloat. Meanwhile, I was trying to juggle school. I'd enrolled in community college, hoping to get a degree and a better life. It was tough as hell. I'd go to classes during the day, work my shitty jobs in the evenings, and study whenever I could squeeze it in. Sleep was a luxury I couldn't afford. The whole time, my parents were living it up. I saw their pictures on Facebook, lounging on beaches, sipping cocktails, exploring exotic places. Every time I saw their smiling faces, I felt a burning rage. They didn't give a damn about what they'd done to me. They were too busy enjoying their adventure. But I wasn't about to let their betrayal break me. I was determined to prove I could survive without them. So, I started hustling harder. I picked up side gigs wherever I could. I delivered pizzas, walked dogs, did freelance work online. Anything to make a buck. After a couple of years of this relentless grind, things started to look up. I managed to save enough to rent a tiny, shitty apartment. It wasn't much, but it was mine. For the first time in years, I had a place to call home. I kept pushing, working my ass off to build a better life. Around this time, I started my own little side business. I had always been good with computers, so I started offering tech support and web design services. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid better than flipping burgers or cleaning toilets. Slowly, my client base grew, and so did my income. I can't even begin to describe the satisfaction of seeing my hard work pay off. Every little success felt like a big fuck you to my parents. They thought they could throw me away like trash, and I'd just fade into nothing. But I was proving them wrong day by day. Just when I thought I was finally getting my life together, my past came knocking, literally. 5 years after they had kicked me out, there was a knock on my door. I opened it to find my mom, Victoria, standing there. She looked like shit. Her eyes were swollen from crying, and she had this defeated look on her face that I'd never seen before. For a moment, I was too stunned to speak. Then she broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. "Garry, your father cheated on me. He left me for some younger woman. I have nowhere else to go," she blurted out between sobs. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The woman who had thrown me out, left me homeless, and never bothered to check on me, was now standing on my doorstep, asking for help. The irony was almost too much to handle, and that's when I realized I had a choice. I could help her, or I could finally get the revenge I dreamed of for years, but that's a story for the next part. So, there she was, my mom Victoria, standing at my doorstep looking like she'd been hit by a train. Her hair was a mess, her makeup smeared, and her eyes red from crying. I had to admit, seeing her like that gave me a twisted sense of satisfaction. This was the woman who had sold our house and kicked me out without a second thought. And now she needed my help? It was almost too much to process. "Garry, please," she started, her voice trembling. "I didn't know where else to go. Your father, he left me. He's been seeing some younger woman, and now he's gone. He took all our money, and I have nothing." While I stood there, staring at her, feeling a mix of anger, disbelief, and a sick sense of pleasure. For years, I had dreamed of a moment like this, where the tables were turned, and she was the one begging for help. "Are you fucking serious?" I finally said, my voice cold and hard. "You kicked me out, left me homeless, and now you're here asking for my help. What the hell makes you think I owe you anything?" She broke down even more, if that was possible, her sobs echoing in the hallway. I know we made mistakes, Garry. I know we hurt you, but please, I have nowhere else to go. Your father ruined everything." I laughed, a harsh, bitter sound that felt like it was tearing out of my chest. "You've got some nerve, Victoria. You and Jeff abandoned me when I needed you the most. And now you expect me to welcome you with open arms? Get the fuck out of here." She looked at me, stunned, as if she couldn't believe what she was hearing. Maybe she thought blood was thicker than water, that I'd just forgive and forget. But I wasn't that naive kid anymore. I had been through hell and back because of them, and I wasn't about to let her waltz back into my life and screw things up again. "Garry, please," she whispered, reaching out to touch my arm. I pulled back, not wanting her to come any closer. "No," I said firmly. "You made your bed. Now lie in it. You're not my problem anymore." With that, I slammed the door in her face. The sound of her sobs outside my door was strangely satisfying. It felt like a victory, a moment of long overdue justice. I leaned against the door, taking a deep breath, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. For the next few days, I couldn't stop thinking about her. Part of me felt a pang of guilt, but I shoved it aside. She had made her choices, and now she was facing the consequences. I had spent years clawing my way out of the hole they'd thrown me into, and I wasn't about to let her drag me back down. I focused on my work, on building the life I had fought so hard for. My tech support and web design business was doing well, and I was finally starting to feel secure. I had friends, a decent place to live, and a future that didn't depend on anyone but myself. But every so often, I'd catch myself wondering what happened to her. Was she living on the streets? Did she find some other poor sucker to take her in? I didn't really care, but the curiosity was there, nagging at the back of my mind. And that's when I realized something important. I had moved on. I didn't need their approval or their love anymore. I had built my own life, and I was damn proud of it. Victoria showing up had been a test, and I had passed with flying colors. So fuck them. They made their choices, and I made mine. And for the first time in years, I felt truly free. The days after Victoria's unexpected visit were weirdly liberating. It felt like I'd finally closed a chapter that had been haunting me for years. But life had a funny way of throwing curveballs, and I wasn't done with her just yet. About a week later, I was working late on a client's website when my phone buzzed. It was a number I didn't recognize. I almost ignored it, but decided to answer. "Hello? Garry, it's Mom," came the trembling voice on the other end. I felt a surge of annoyance, but stayed silent. "Please, I'm at a shelter. I have nowhere else to go. Can we just talk? Just for a minute?" I sighed, rubbing my temples. "Fine. 1 minute. Talk." She started rambling, recounting her sob story about how Jeff had run off with some woman half his age, drained their bank accounts, and left her with nothing but a pile of debt. She was desperate, broke, and alone. "Garry, I know I don't deserve your help, but I'm begging you. I have no one else." I listened, my anger simmering. "You know what, Victoria? I've heard enough. You and Jeff threw me out like trash. You didn't give a damn about what happened to me. Now you're asking for my sympathy? You can go to hell." She was silent for a moment, then said softly, "I'm sorry, Garry. I really am. I was wrong, and I've paid the price. I just want a chance to make things right." I laughed bitterly. "Make things right? You think saying sorry is going to fix the years of shit I went through? You think it'll make up for the nights I spent wondering if I'd have a place to sleep? Fuck that. I survived without you, and I don't need you now." I hung up, feeling a twisted sense of satisfaction. But as much as I wanted to shut her out completely, something kept nagging at me. Maybe it was the look in her eyes when she stood at my door, or the broken tone in her voice. I hated to admit it, but a small part of me still cared. The next day, I decided to confront her. I needed closure, once and for all. I drove to the shelter she mentioned, my mind racing with a mix of anger and curiosity. When I arrived, I spotted her sitting on a bench, looking lost and frail. She saw me and stood up, tears welling in her eyes. "Garry, Thank you for coming." "Cut the crap," I snapped. "I'm here to tell you that you're on your own. I don't owe you anything. Not after what you did." "I understand," she said quietly. "I just wanted you to know that I'm truly sorry. I was selfish and blind. I thought we were doing the right thing, but I see now how much I hurt you." I felt a surge of anger. "You have no idea what you put me through. I had to scrape by, working shit jobs just to survive. You were living it up while I was cleaning toilets and flipping burgers, and now you want my help? Why should I care?" She broke down sobbing. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I just wanted a chance to say I'm sorry. I have nothing left, Garry. No money, no home, nothing." I stood there, staring at her, torn between anger and pity. Finally, I took a deep breath. "You know what, Victoria? I don't care about your apology. It doesn't change anything, but I'll give you this. I hope you learn from this. I hope you understand what it means to be left with nothing. Maybe then you'll realize the hell you put me through." I turned to leave, feeling a sense of finality. She called after me, but I didn't look back. I walked away, knowing that this was the end. She had made her choices, and now she had to live with them. Driving back to my apartment, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I had faced my past and walked away stronger. I didn't need their approval or their love. I had built my own life, and I was damn proud of it. For the first time in years, I felt truly free, and it felt fucking great. After confronting Victoria, I felt an overwhelming sense of closure. I had finally faced the demons from my past, and I was ready to move on. Life had a way of testing you, but I was done being the victim. I had survived on my own, built my own life, and nothing could take that away from me. A few weeks passed, and things started to settle back into a routine. My business was doing well, and I even managed to make some new friends who became like family to me. The past was finally behind me, and I was looking forward to the future. Then, one evening, while I was working on a project, I got another call. This time it was from a number I recognized. Jeff's. I hesitated before answering, curiosity getting the better of me. "What do you want?" "Garry, it's Dad," he started, his voice unusually soft. "I know things have been bad between us, but I need to talk to you. Can we meet?" I felt a wave of anger, but also a strange sense of curiosity. "Fine. Tomorrow at noon, the diner on 5th, I said, hanging up before he could say anything else. The next day, I walked into the diner, spotting Jeff at a corner table. He looked older, more worn out than I remembered. Life hadn't been kind to him, and for a moment I almost felt a twinge of pity. Almost. "Garry," he said, standing up as I approached. "Thanks for coming." "Let's make this quick," I replied, sitting down. "What do you want?" He sighed, looking down at his hands. "I fucked up, Garry, I know that. I let my greed and selfishness ruin everything. I lost Victoria, I lost my money, and I lost you. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just want to explain." I leaned back, crossing my arms. "Explain? You think an explanation is going to fix years of shit you put me through?" He shook his head. "No, but you deserve to know the truth. We sold the house because we thought it was our chance to finally live our dreams. We were wrong. I was wrong. Victoria and I thought we were doing what was best for us, not realizing how much we were hurting you." "Hurting me?" I snapped. "You didn't just hurt me, you fucking destroyed my life. I had to scrape by, working shit jobs, living on the streets, while you two were off on your adventure. I was fighting to survive." "I know," he said, his voice breaking, "and I'm sorry. I'm truly sorry. I just want you to know that I regret everything. I lost everything because of my choices." I stared at him, feeling a mix of anger and pity. "Why now? Why are you telling me this now?" "Because I have nothing left," he admitted. "No money, no family, nothing. I've hit rock bottom, and I realized that the only thing that mattered was the family I threw away. I'm asking for a chance to make things right. Not for me, but for you." I laughed bitterly. "You want to make things right? You You think a few words can make up for years of neglect? You're delusional, Jeff. I don't need you. I don't need your apology. I've built my life without you, and I'm damn proud of it. He looked at me, tears in his eyes. I understand. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry. Truly sorry. I stood up, feeling a sense of finality. Goodbye, Jeff. Don't contact me again. I'm done with both of you. Walking out of that diner, I felt a rush of emotions. Anger, relief, satisfaction. They had finally realized the magnitude of their mistakes, but it was too late. I had moved on, built my life from the ground up, and I wasn't about to let them drag me back down. From that day on, I focused entirely on my future. I put my past behind me, knowing that I had faced it head on and come out stronger. I had survived the worst and built a life I was proud of. And you know what? It felt fucking great.